This is Kingdom Warrior. I'm your host, Andrea Beam, and every episode we bring you powerful conversations with bold business owners, passionate young adults, and overcomers who have turned their toughest battles into breakthrough moments. We dive into practical business strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset that fuels resilience, so that you can overcome obstacles and scale your calling with confidence. If this speaks to you, hit subscribe now on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode, and share it with someone who needs a shot of bold faith and courage today. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Kingdom Warrior podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest whose story I am so excited to jump into for y'all. Carrie Watts and I just recently got to meet in regards to, she's coaching me on my book, and that was how we originally met. And then we realized how much our stories maybe kind of cross over a bit, and I'm just stoked for you all to hear her story and her testimony. You guys are going to get so many nuggets from her. But you guys, Carrie is not only an author of a book called Crisis of Faith, which she will show you here in a minute. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll get to see that. Make sure you go download it. She's a writing coach. She is a national speaker. She's also the host of Saved and Strong, a podcast, which you guys also need to go listen to as well. And she has a huge passion for helping women who are going through different levels of healing. And you also have a nursing background, right, Carrie?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I love this. So you guys are going to get so much from Carrie today. Carrie, let's start at the beginning. For you, what would you say is the beginning of your story? Where do we jump in at?
Well, first, I just want to say, Andrea, thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be here on your podcast. I know as a podcast host that it takes a lot of work to get a podcast out, but our world needs our words now more than ever. I do feel like people are hurting and they are searching. And so my story personally started a long time ago in my house. I grew up in 1,600 square feet with 7 people. And, relationships can be very sensitive sometimes. And I grew up in church. I grew up in the church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. My mom and dad were just hardworking middle class people. So there was nothing super special about my house. I grew up in a neighborhood. My best friend lived across the street. I was probably at her house more than I was at mine because she only had one sister, and her mom was just full of peace and love and joy. And there was always chocolate chip cookies and milk on the table. I mean, it was just that sweet kind of place, just a sweet space to be in.
Someone you always want to be around.
Yes. And so, but as we know, there is no perfect family. There's no perfect neighborhood. There's no perfect home. Yeah. And a lot of what happens to us as children is tucked away and it's never talked about. And so if you were to look at me or look at our family, you would have never known that someone in my home was sexually abusing me when they were on drugs. And that, there's a lot to unpack there, but it really just got stuffed. And like a dormant volcano that eventually erupts, when I was in nursing school, I felt the Lord leading me to go seek out counseling because I didn't know how I was going to take care of somebody else when I was the one that needed to be taken care of. Yeah. And we underestimate our mental health. Yeah. And as I was learning about how to take care of a patient physically and mentally, I realized I needed that. And so I took myself to counseling and I started on that road to healing. And it took crying for a whole hour. I had not cried in 10 years. I was very hard-hearted. And I just unloaded on her. All she said was, "Tell me why you're here." And I was like, oh, I just yeah. Bless her heart. She was like, "I'll be right back." And she went to get another counselor in the room. But through books being read, letters being written, I found writing to be very cathartic, very therapeutic for me. And I really enjoyed writing those letters, whether I tore them up or threw them in the fire. it helped me to get my words out, all that stuff
Yeah.
that I had suppressed for so long. And so, yeah, I went into nursing. I got married. I have 3 boys, but it was in my second half of life where the Lord really sat me down and nudged me to write. So I made a book
Mm.
deal with God, and I wrote my memoir. I wrote my own story. And as I wrote my whole life's story, I was reminded of all the things that the Lord had brought me through. I mean, I laughed and I cried, and I just was so much more thankful. Like, it's good to go back. I feel like we have to go back to move
Oh,
forward
yes.
sometimes and
Yep.
kind of unpack all that. And because we can so easily forget. And, remembering is mentioned in the Bible over and over and over. Remember what I've done for you. Remember how I brought you through the waters. Remember how I
Mm.
brought you through the fire. Remember how I brought you through the storm. And he's been so good to me. And so now that I'm on that other side of healing, I think healing is a process. I don't want to sound like
Mhm.
I was one and done. It has taken me years to get to the point where I am today. But
Yeah.
now I want to help these young girls heal earlier rather than later so that they too can step into God's plan and purpose for their life. So, as I went from writing my own memoir and making that book deal with God that I would never share it, then I realized through Hope Writers, which was the online group that I joined,
Mhm.
that I had to have that one ideal avatar that I was writing to, right? Our
Mhm.
friend Brian tells that to us all the time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so as I nailed that down to that 13 to 15-year-old girl who wasn't sure what
Mhm.
to do with her childhood trauma, then I realized, well, she's not walking around with a 50-year-old's memoir. She's reading fiction. And
Mhm.
so when I went to the bookstores and I looked at online at young adult fiction, there's a lot of young adult fiction out there, but it's very dark. So
Yes.
I wanted
Yeah.
to bring light into these girls' lives and say, hey, you might be going through a dark place in your life, but there is a Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, that loves you, and He is light. And so that is how I came to write Crisis of Faith. And it's a story of two best friends that grow up to run a safe house for
Mm.
girls running from their trafficker. And then it's about them healing from their childhood trauma. So, in helping Hope, who is running from her trafficker, Faith shares her story of childhood trauma and how she healed from that and is healing. But she now is to a point in her healing journey where she wants to help these young girls. So, I'm currently writing the sequel to Crisis of Faith. And so it's very exciting.
I can't wait. I can't wait to read this book. So I want to go back because there's something that you mentioned that kind of perked my ears up when you were talking about the beginning parts of your story and when you first went into the counselor and she asked one question and like all of the sudden the gates opened, right? And everything just starts coming out. I think we have this tendency to charge the storm, right? Like we just think we need to be stronger. We need to deal with things head on, or like I think you said, just kind of shove them down, right? Like you just need to deal with them by stomping them out, right? Just so. What would your advice be to people that are kind of that headstrong, just charge forward mentality? What did you learn in your healing process that would speak directly to that mindset?
Well, I would say definitely if you feel the nudge
Mm.
from heaven above. And if you are seeking the Lord's will for your life, if you have the Holy Spirit in you and you're tapping into that, like you're inviting the Holy Spirit in to talk to you and lead your life, because I tried to be in charge of my life. And I was stumbling and bumbling all over the place. I was dating the wrong boys. I was doing the wrong thing on Friday and Saturday night. I had to go to church on Sunday and ask for forgiveness. And it was a vicious cycle. I was
Yeah.
doing myself no favors. And I was at a point where I had to surrender and go, okay, Lord, I obviously don't know what I'm doing in this life. Will you help me? And when I finally came to the conclusion that I needed him to lead me and I needed to surrender, that's when things started falling into place. And when I mean following into place, I had to find the courage to get in my car and go to counseling and to show up for that appointment and to allow a complete stranger see emotions that I didn't even know I had in me.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do the hard work of healing. It's not easy, but it's so worth it.
And you said the key word there that I want you to dig deeper into that too, is you talked about surrender. What does surrender look like to you? I mean, the reason I ask is because I've had conversations with a good friend of mine lately. And she kind of called me out. You know, she's one of those friends that she just speaks truth, and I love it because I know I'm never going to get any sugarcoating, you know, from her. And she said, Andrea, you're still trying to control all the different aspects. She's like, I don't think you've learned how to surrender yet. And I was like, oh, that stung a little bit, you know? So for you, what does surrender look like to you if you were to describe it?
Sure. I'll say currently, right now, I fight that me and that surrender to the Lord. And right now, it's with the book I'm writing. Like I want it to get done. I'm ready to write, but I'm co-writing it. And so I'm being sensitive to my friend's story because she came to me over a year ago and said, my character needs to come to your safe house because she had read and promoted Crisis of Faith with me. And I knew her story. She had been on my podcast. And I was like, ooh, your character does need to come to my safe house. And so, like, Crisis of Faith is sort of my story in fiction form. The sequel, Hope Rising, is going to be her story in fiction form. And so I remember the physical and mental stamina that it took to write this book. And because when you go back, you know, it's just, it's sensitive, you know, it's sensitive content. And so I'm trying to remember what it was like writing Crisis of Faith and be sensitive to that for her and just give her space to develop the story. And so my timing is not God's timing. And I have to remember that all the time. And so I don't live far from my church, and my church has a wooden cross up on the hill. And so surrender for me sometimes is running the 3 miles, getting there, and literally, because I'm a visual person, laying down whatever it is that I'm trying to control, just laying it at the foot of the cross and crying out to God and saying, God, I want to control this book. I want to control the date, the time, the deadlines, but it's not for me. It's in your timing. So I'm giving it to you. And I know my tendencies to want to control, right? Because I had to protect myself for so long in my childhood. It is in my being, it is in my bone marrow to protect myself, protect my time, protect my space, right? And so it is hard to let go and let God. But even when I contracted for this book with my friend Amanda, I met her at that cross and I said, you meet me at the cross. We're going to pray about this for a few months before we commit to it. And we met at that cross and we prayed at the foot of that cross. And we were like, Lord, we don't want this book to have Carrie and Amanda's name on it. I mean, it might have our name on it, but we want God to get all the glory, the glory. Yeah.
Yeah. When you talk about, being able to give God the glory for your book. When you made that shift in your mindset, did you feel like things shifted in your conversation as well? Like, I know for me, when I shifted that mindset with my events that I put on, everything changed for me in my events, how I responded to them, how I dealt with the day after the event, was very different than when I had done previous events where it was really an ego-based thing, right? And so for you, and I don't see any part of your book being an ego-based thing, but when you made that decision with the sequel, did you feel like there was a shift in your mindset in that, or do you feel like there was any difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the world we live in, anything that you do, anything that you create, yes, God's given you the gifts and abilities,
Mm.
but we're constantly being critiqued, right?
Mhm.
I mean, with a book, we have editors.
Oh, yeah.
We have the developmental editor. We have the copy editor. Your book goes on Amazon and Goodreads. People can give you a review,
Yeah.
a 1 or a 5-star review. They can tell people about your book, and what they say about your book matters. We see that with our eyes. It's not
Yeah.
going anywhere. It's always going to be there. And so I'll tell you where I never felt any angst about my book until the royalty checks didn't come in.
Mm.
And that's when I realized this is not about money. This is about lives. And God's economy is not our economy. Lives being saved do not equal dollar signs. And I even gave my launch team a necklace with a cross and a triangle and a heart, and I have it in the book, and I wrote it everywhere on my launch team. Is my prayer for my books is Jesus change hearts, grow your kingdom.
Mm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so I finally realized that writing for me is like a mission trip. When I go on a mission trip, I I plan with a team. I pay to go on that mission trip. I may share the gospel or the good news while I'm on that mission trip. I may work really hard on painting or
Mhm.
building something, feeding people, but I don't know when I leave if hearts have been changed. I have
Mhm.
faith that God used my little fishes and loaves to do something. I don't know what it is. And so I've had to look at my writing like a mission trip. I'm paying to do this. I'm going to put forth my effort, whatever I have to give, I'm going to give, and then I've got to walk away and go, Lord, you do with it what you want to do with
Mhm.
it.
What was the hardest part for you when you wrote your first book? Did you have, I know you talked about reviews, but what were some of the voices or the thoughts that were going through your mind as you were writing that, getting ready to share your story to the world, right? Like, I realize it was a fiction book, but you're putting pieces of your story out there. So what kind of thoughts did you battle? What kind of doubts did you battle when you were getting ready to share your story?
For me, it was who do I think I am? Because
Mm.
I don't have a creative writing degree. I haven't even at the time I had not even written like anything to be published, not a magazine article, not a newspaper article. I had published my own blog, but it
Mm.
wasn't going past anybody before it went out, if that makes sense. Nobody
Yeah,
hired me to do that.
sure.
And so that was what haunted me is who do I think I am to write a whole book? I've barely written a paragraph to be published before, you know. But if the Lord has called you to it, he'll bring you through it, as they say, you know.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. How, they say to take, they say, well, the Bible says, Jesus says to take every thought captive.
Yes.
Do you feel like that was a struggle for you during that time?
Yes. So our publisher asks us to submit an outline and a sample chapter.
Mhm.
My sample chapter did not get approved the first or the second time. And my editor at the time had young girls, and he said, Carrie, you're writing to young girls. They're not going to read this. It's not going to hook them in. You're not talking to them. And so I
Mhm.
had to go back to the drawing board because I have 3 sons. I mean, they
Yeah.
hang out with
Yeah.
girls, right? But I don't. And they don't talk like I talked when I was a teenager. So I started volunteering. I had already been serving at my church, but not with the youth. So I have
Okay.
started volunteering with the youth on Wednesday nights and have a small group of girls. And I even had about 5 seventh graders that I asked to be beta readers for my book. And I was most impressed. They came back with very good critiques. They were marking things out and highlighting, and they had comments off to the side. And I thought that was the best thing I could have been told was
Mm.
this is not gonna pass. you've got to go back and rewrite this. And he had my best interest at heart, right? Because he wants
Yeah.
us to sell books.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing that happened to me is I almost got a rebel attitude. Like, let me show him. Like, I'm going to redo this and it's going to be good. But, that's what a good coach does is
Yeah.
push you further than you think you can go. And that's what my editor did for me.
What were some of the lessons that you feel like you learned with dealing with more of the youth in church? But you raised 3 boys. I raised 2 boys. Being a boy mom, it brings different struggles than being a girl mom. What do you feel like some of the lessons were that you learned maybe through your kids?
Oh my goodness, they've taught me so much. I have looked at them many a days and I'm like, you didn't say that. God said that. But yeah.
Ditto. I agree.
Well, and just to be vulnerable, as a parent, I realized I had to go back to counseling because when they would disobey me, my reaction of anger was toxic. I will say that. I'd never hurt
Mhm.
my kids, but I was a yeller.
Yeah.
And I so wanted them to do the right thing. I so that wanted them to be mighty men of God who could provide and protect. And I would say things like, you're a future man, you're not a future kid. So I'm gonna help you become a man. I would say things like that, but I was like, is that from a healed point or is that from a point?
Mm,
Is that a heart that still needs some healing? And
yeah.
so I had to ask for forgiveness many days, and I would ask my boys to pray with me, pray for me. And my middle son even said a few years ago, he said, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. You hadn't yelled at us in years." But they definitely taught me to soften up a little bit, to lighten up a little bit, and not take my parenting job so seriously because I was such a helicopter parent. I so was involved in their lives, and I had to let them go and let them kind of figure out some things on their own, even some mistakes that I'm like, you know what? Lord, I just pray if they're going to disobey or be defiant like they are, to do that while they're still in my house so I can walk them through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's one of the hardest parts of parenting is intentionally letting your kids fail and stumble at things that you want so badly to step in and save them from that, right? You want to fix it or make it better or stop them entirely. And within reason, right? Like letting them fail forward, letting them make mistakes. That's to me, that was one of the hardest things of parenting. And I feel like sometimes I would do that well and sometimes I would do that horribly. Like my natural instinct is to step in and help, step in and figure it out, be a problem solver or, things like that. And I realized that I wasn't doing them any good whatsoever. I wasn't helping them learn how to become, you know, good adults. And so, when you're talking about that, the anger part, or even just the controlling all those components, that hits home for me so much because I always wanted to control the mistakes. It was like, no,
Mm,
no, no. You have to step back and let them figure those things out
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. But I love my boys. And one of the things that I was told when they were when my oldest was in middle school was, you're going to think that an alien came and stole your child's brain, but love them through
Yes.
it. Love them unconditionally like Jesus loves us, and they will come back around. And now that my oldest two are in their 20s, I see it.
Yeah.
They call me and text me more and they ask for my advice. And to me, that is like, we're going places if they are coming back to me because they would have never asked my advice
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
But boys, they love their mom and they want to be loved back.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I know I found it. I had someone gave me this really great advice that to spend more, as the boys, as my boys grew up and my oldest is, getting ready to have his first baby. They're due like this week. I'm so excited for them. And then my youngest is 19. And I I look at as they got older and they started getting more independent and they started kind of moving away from me, and there was less and less time being spent there. That was something I really struggled with. That it wasn't necessarily even just empty nest syndrome. It was just my life so revolved around their sports, their school, their, all the things. And so when they weren't around as much anymore, I really struggled with that. But a friend of mine gave me this advice about, finding the things that they love to do and then go spend time with them doing whatever those things are. Right. Like if, I don't know, if they love golfing or hunting or race cars or whatever, I'm just kind of making stuff up here, but getting to spend time with them doing the things they love is such a difference in, I get to sit back and watch their faces as they like light up, as they tell me about whatever it is, they tell me about whatever they're excited about. And it is such a different relationship than when they were younger. So kind of like you're describing, it's kind of having to maneuver around a different dynamic.
Oh yes, we have been to many sporting events that I could have just stayed at home, but I was like, no, I need to be there,
Yeah.
And we're in Mississippi, so New Orleans is close. We would go to the NBA games or the NFL games, and then just our SEC games or Mississippi State or Ole Miss. We'd go to those games, and they loved it. They loved the camps, and yeah, football, baseball, all the things. They love it.
Thanks. So I want to circle back to your book some more because I think there's still a lot more to unpack with your book. When did you first get that calling, or whatever you would name that? When did you first get that, and what were you feeling around that? Did you kind of say, no way, not me? Or did you lean into it wholeheartedly? Kind of walk me through what you were feeling when you first started feeling like God was nudging you in that direction.
Yeah, I was homeschooling my kiddos. They were in elementary school, and I was leading a homeschool program called Classical Conversations. It's they meet once a week. It's a community. And as my older ones were learning how to write creatively with the Essentials of Writing program, then my creative juices were just sparked, like something from my childhood that had been dormant just started coming out as I was teaching my kids. And I was like, y'all, this is fun. Aren't you loving it? And they're like rolling their eyes at me. But I started waking up really early, and that's when I started writing my story. And as I was going through life, because as you know, you don't just heal from something and life is good for the rest of your life. Just things happen, right? Relationships get difficult, work gets difficult, whatever it is. And so as I was going through some difficult times, I guess, it just it helped me to get up and write about it. And that's when the Lord was like, write your story. Just remember the good things. Remember what we've been through together. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to forsake you. I'm here for you. We're going to get through this again. I mean, it's a different topic. It's a different hard space, but we're going to get through this, And so that helped me to get up and write. And so then I started a blog on WordPress called Stay High Blog. And the stay high doesn't mean on marijuana. It is, I was up early. I've read through the Bible 9 times. I love reading through the Bible every year.
Wow.
And sometimes it goes slower. Sometimes it's over a course of 2 or 3 years, but I just like reading through the Bible. And I was reading Colossians 3, where it says, since then you have been crucified with Christ, keep your heart and your mind on things above. And I heard the Lord whisper, stay high. And he has a personality. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Come on, Lord. Seriously? Like, I hate drugs. I hate drugs. And, I've prayed many times, Lord, take all the drugs off the earth, because we're done. They just, it's Satan's way of stealing a life. Just get rid of drugs. Yeah. But anyway, and so I was like, Lord, why would you say that to me? Like, you know me. And he was like, no, seriously, just inhale me. Just stop worrying about all this earthly, worldly junk and get your mind, lift your chin, look up. I'm right here, stay high on me. And so that kind of became my motto for
Mm.
life is stay high on Jesus. I mean, my tag says Colossians 3. I mean, I just try to live that every day. Like you said, take those thoughts captive and remember what really matters. The small stuff is really small stuff. It's all small stuff. And so just, keep your mind on things above. God has a bigger plan. And if we can just see that we can't always see the plan or the big picture, but we know he has it. And
Mhm.
so that's when I finally kind of realized after writing my blog, I wrote about 100 blogs, and I thought maybe I do enjoy this writing thing. That's when I joined Hope Writers, and they have the Tuesday teaching where they interview other authors. And so
Mhm.
they had interviewed authors that I had read before, like Robin Jones Gunn and Beth Moore and some others. And I just really enjoyed learning their writer life. Do they drink coffee? Do they drink tea? I mean, from that to their niche, to who their ideal reader is, their writing day, what does that look like? And what other kind of things are they doing other than writing? What's their business? What are their hobbies? And so it became a hobby for me to learn about other authors. And if I were to become an author one day, what would my life look like? And it was at one of the Hope Story conferences that Brian announced. It was fall of 2022. He announced that he was going to start Hope Books Publishing. And if you wanted to pitch your idea, and so I prayed about it. I was like, I'm not going to pitch my idea yet. But I asked my husband to pray about it with me. I was like, I really think I want to write a book for these girls. And so it was February of 23 that, that I signed my contract with Hope Books.
Wow. Wow. I love hearing, in hindsight being 2020, I love hearing how things intertwine together to how they come to pass, And so being able to hear kind of that timeline when you look back, hindsight being 2020, when you look back over your story, do you see exact instances where you feel like maybe more so than some other time periods in your life where you feel like, oh my gosh, I totally see where God showed up in my life in that moment? Do you ever look back in hindsight and feel like you see those moments?
Oh, yes.
What would be, will you share one of them? Not to put you on the spot, but what comes to mind when you think about looking back in hindsight when God showed up in a big way that was undeniable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say in college, when I was like done with relationships, I was not going to date anybody. I was going to know who Carrie was. I was going to find my identity and who I was by myself before I started sharing my life with somebody else. And I remember I was working in the housing office at my little college. I went to a small liberal arts Christian college, but I worked in housing, and it was before like mail merge on
Oh,
computers. So I
yeah.
was typing everybody's address every
Mhm.
time we sent them a letter about their dorm or about anything that had anything to do with college, really.
Probably got real good at typing.
I got real good at typing. Thank you.
Mhm.
And, but I remember going to orientation, and I would meet people and I would know their address. And I sort of scared myself because I did not mean to memorize everybody's address. It just happened. And I had seen everybody's like picture on their file because I had to open up their file to get their address or whatever. Everything was so archaic back then. But I remember meeting my husband at orientation, and I just saw him and I was like, there's those big blue eyes and that big wide smile. And I was like, you're Dusty Watts and your address is blah, 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 blah. And I mean, he looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. But I remember thinking, just chill out or whatever. But meeting him, we were friends for a year before we started dating. But as much as I tried not to think about him, I kept thinking about him. And I was like,
Mhm.
Lord, if you really want this to happen, you got to make it very clear. And so that relationship just was so, um, I guess, needed at the time, and I didn't know it. I needed just a good guy in my life, because I had come to the conclusion, I think it was the enemy that was
Mm,
putting in my head that all men stunk,
yeah.
and you cannot trust men. And I really do think the enemy wanted me to believe that with all my heart. I had a great dad. I will say that my dad gave me hope. I had a very my dad had been through a very hard life, and that's a whole book in itself. But he had committed himself to being a good provider for our family, and he did the best he could with what he had. And
Mhm.
he did not have, I mean, he was left at the hospital and was adopted by an aunt and uncle, and that uncle died early. So he was pretty much raised by an aunt. But anyway, and so I had a really good dad. He had committed himself to breaking cycles, if you will. But but yeah, so I was like, Jesus, I love you and my daddy and nobody else. And and I was gonna be okay being by myself. I had come to that conclusion. And so I did everything I could do to make that relationship not work, and it worked. And so I was like, okay. But I think that's where God probably showed up most in my life. And then he gave me 3 sons, and I was like, you do have a personality.
There's definitely a little sense of humor in there
Yeah.
for sure. 100%. I've definitely seen that sense of humor for sure.
Yeah.
So, um, in your younger years, then, so you had this great example. Um, when you went through maybe the toughest parts of your life, and I kind of want to go a little deeper here. And we talked at the very beginning, before we started recording this podcast, we were talking about adversity. And there's been, I think, a lot of conversations, and it seems to be all over Facebook these days, or any social media, seeing people that are just going through really heavy, deep struggles, where the weight is feeling like it's too much to bear. And I even think of, we got news this couple of days ago, that a young man that my boys went to school with had taken his life.
Mm.
And so the weight of those struggles is very real, and it is incredibly heavy. uh, when you were going through maybe the darkest period of your life, what you felt like was the heaviest period, and you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, looking back at that now, what would you how would you say that you got through that? What would you say to people that are maybe in some really heavy places right now?
Well, I learned a prayer when I was in 7th, 8th grade. I went to public school. My very best friend went to parochial school. And I used to love the one day of the year that I could go visit her school. It was like bring a friend to school day. And they had religion class every day that a priest led. And the one day that I was there, he had us all lay our heads on the desk and close our eyes and imagine opening a bag and putting everything that was on our mind in that bag, whether it was home
Mhm.
relationships, friendship relationships, school, worrying about money, our clothes, everything a teenager worries about, our looks, our makeup, our whatever. Put it in the bag. And he just mentioned one thing after another. And he said, now you're standing on a cliff. Take that bag and throw it off the cliff. He was like, you can come back and get it later, but just throw it off the cliff. And then he had us imagine going into the forest, and he said, there's a log there, there's a stream, sit on the log. And then he said, now here comes Jesus. Oh my goodness, I was weeping. I was like, oh my goodness. And he said, just sit by Jesus and tell him what's on your heart.
Mm.
All that other stuff is gone. It's just you and him. And the weather's perfect, the sun's shining in at 72 sunny degree day, you're in the shade, it's perfect, you don't have to worry about anything. And he said, now just talk to Jesus for the rest of the hour of the class or whatever. And I mean, that's how I ended up going to sleep every night from then on. it was just like, it just taught me. And I had been in church my whole life, but I had never been walked through a prayer like that. And and I'm visual, so that really
Mhm.
helped me. And so when you say you're carrying around something heavy, I don't know if you're like me, but I carry my stress right here, you
Yep.
know, right there in the nape of the neck. I'm just like,
Yep.
give me a massage on my neck, get those knots out. And so I
Yep.
think about that when I take that stuff off my shoulders and put it in that bag, whatever it is that's weighing me down, take it off, throw it off the cliff, and go talk to Jesus, because what we can't fix,
Hmm.
what we can't change, he can. He is in the business of changing minds, of changing hearts, of miracles. And where we don't see a way, he's got a way. And that is so reassuring to me that I don't have to worry about it. And so even when I do give things to him, I tend to want to pull them back. And so I have to
Hmm.
just make it a practice of, nope, I gave that to you. It's yours. Turn around, keep going about my business.
Yeah. Don't go back for it. Don't do it. When you talk about holding everything in your neck, absolutely 100%. I agree. I'm always asking my boys, can you death grip my neck? I need you
Yeah.
to just death grip it. they know. Yeah. Mom's stressed out. She needs a death grip on her neck. Um, I love that advice. I heard from a speaker the other day, they said these words, and I can't unhear this. They said, adversity is valuable.
Hmm.
And I never would have put those two words in the same sentence ever. But it was just, I don't know, it was one of those moments where I heard that and I wrote it down and I thought, what a perspective shift, because we look at adversity in our life, hard things, the weighted things, the heavy things, um, the things that we have to heal from. And we look at them like it's this thing that has ruined us. And yet, when he made that statement that adversity is valuable, how many times do we look back at the tough periods of our life and go, man, that was super valuable? Like, that's not usually the words that we use. But, in context, he was talking about, again, about like how God uses our story to help so many other people, and sometimes it's one other person. It doesn't really matter the amount, but that it is used to help
Yeah.
someone. It's used to get someone else out of that place. And I just can't unhear
Yeah.
that statement.
Well, and I think what the enemy wants us to believe is that we're alone in our
Mhm.
adversity, that
Yes.
nobody else has experienced or nobody would understand what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And I
Help you.
I tell my own story behind the story in small groups, on stages, and it never fails. I have someone or many women come up to me and say, "Hey, I went through that same thing. Is it too late for me to heal?" And they're in their 60s and 70s. And I'm like, absolutely not. It is never too late to start the healing process, because suffering produces character, right? And character produces hope, and hope produces perseverance. And we won't know the end game unless we begin. And
Mhm.
so it's so true. I told you before the call, I had to run an errand with my father-in-law today, and we were just talking about how much we love living where we do. We're kind of out of we're out in the country a little bit. We're on family land. And he said, had we not gone through the flood of 79, it was an Easter flood in Jackson, Mississippi. He said, I would have never moved out of Jackson. And we had this land where we could all live together and enjoy. And so I said, it's the storms of life that help us to appreciate the sunny days, the beautiful days. So
Yeah.
true.
So you are also a coach,
Yes.
right? Um, we're talking about we've talked a little bit or alluded to perspective shifts in our mindset of as we've gone through healing or gone through adversity. As a coach, and you are a writing coach, right? So Where in your coaching have you seen major perspective shifts happen? And can you give an example of a major perspective shift, either in you or in someone you've coached?
Sure, I would be glad to. I in my desperation to finish my first book, I threw out one day, I was like, hey, if anybody wants to grab a Zoom room with me and let's write together, the only time I can do that is 5 a.m. on Monday mornings. And it was crickets, but I'm an early bird. And I had one author reach out to me and say, hey, I'll meet you. And she's from Minnesota. I'm in Mississippi, but we're both in Central Time.
Oh, surprise.
And yes, and so she actually wrote a review for me as an author coach, and she's so sweet. Her name is Glenee, and her book is finished and it's been released. It's so sweet, but she credits those early morning Zoom rooms to having the accountability,
Yes.
and the expectations that every week when we met, it was like, okay, what have you written this week? And you don't want to show up to a coaching call without having something to show for what you did that week.
Amen.
Yeah. So I say that accountability is key to coaching. And it's a kind accountability, it's not like you're going to do 100 burpees if you didn't get it done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's grace for we all have moments in our life where we just can't get it done, but it's nice to do something, and one thing that our publisher starts every coaching call with, what are your wins this week? Even the smallest wins are a win. And so that for me has been so key in my progress. And so I try to do that for other people is, hey, get something written. Some people like to have, okay, I'm going to get a certain amount of words written this week or this day. And some people are just like, I'm going to get a chapter written. Some people are like, I just need to do research this week. Like, I feel like I'm writing from off the cuff and I need to know that what I'm writing is true. So everybody's at a different stage in their writing. My joy is to help writers who were where I was 10 years ago, where I think the Lord's calling me to write, but I just don't know how to start. So I really have the joy of helping people just start, just write your testimony, write your own life story down. That will open up your mind to, it just helps get the past out. It helps get that trauma, if you will, out, or that bad experience that you're holding on to. For some reason, we feel like if we hold on to the past, that it's like our one thing we have to protect ourselves. Whereas really it's the one thing that can free you to move forward. And so if we can just get that out, I've read some research. Anyway, there's a professor at University of Texas. For 40 years, he researched expressive writing. Take that one hard thing that you went through and write about it 4 different times, whether you do it 4 different days in a row or 4 weeks in a row. The more you write about it, the less it affects you. And so some people, writing to me can be as good or better than going to counseling. It really does. There is a brain, heart, hand connection to writing, and really writing with a pen and a notebook versus typing.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of research, and it not only helps you mentally and spiritually, but it helps you physically. They have proven that it helps the immune system, helps fight disease, helps lower your blood pressure. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, now everybody needs to start writing.
I know. And there's so many people that are like, well, no, it's not, it won't help me. Well, just try it. I mean, you'll take a pill to feel better. Try writing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why not? Yeah. It's a lot better than, than the alternative that's out there. So do you feel like becoming a coach, there's that saying that what got you here won't get you there. Becoming a coach for you, did you have to have a perspective shift in not just how you wrote, but Was that a struggle for you in learning how to teach other people or help other people through that? Did you have to kind of find a new skill set?
Yes and no. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but I am a
Mhm.
2 on the Enneagram. And it's not an end all be all do all for me, but it's really helped me understand myself. And I, by nature, am a supportive advisor. And
Mm,
I tend to give people too much help, like help that they didn't ask for. So I have to be very
mm,
careful. And
yeah.
so in the coaching realm, if somebody reaches out to me, which they have a lot, that's what I noticed is once you have published a book, your reputation is such that you know what you're doing.
Mm,
Because writing is a process, and only 5% of people who say they're going to write a book actually ever do because they've got to get over so many obstacles, you
yeah.
know,
It's
just
such a
word.
small percentage. I remember hearing that percentage and I was shocked.
Yes, because there's a lot of books out there, and
Yeah.
you see the sea of books, and you're like, oh no, there's a lot of authors out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I had so many people coming to me to go, hey, I think I want to write a book. What do you think? And you only have so many hours in the day, and so many coffees and lunches take away from your own writing progress, right? So you're like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I had a group coaching, maybe I could do some one-on-ones, but I really had to evaluate what was worth my time and energy. And yes, I do love supporting people and advising people, so it definitely in fit with writing for me very well.
Hmm. What is one of your biggest success stories? Brag on yourself for a minute. What's one of your biggest success stories, do you feel like, with coaching someone in writing?
Oh, just seeing them publish their book and helping them release it. I love to be on launch teams and help people release their books. I love to have them on my podcast to help get
Mhm.
their message out as well. And there's just nothing better than seeing people succeed.
So talk about your podcast a little bit. What are some of the stories that you share on your podcast? What are like, give us a little bit of history into that, and how did the podcast get started? We know how the book got started, but how did the podcast get started?
Well, funny you should ask. So, October of 2024
Mhm.
was when I started my book launch. It was released in November of 2024. Well, my sister and I attended a charitable event, and they had the silent auction. One of the silent auction items was 12 free podcast broadcasts in a real podcast studio, and nobody had bid on it. And so my sister was like, yeah, you got to bid on that because you got
Oh
to
my
promote
goodness.
your book. I know. So I was the lowest bidder. Nobody outbid me. And I called Daniel, who owned the studio, and I said, hey, I was the lowest bidder on your donated podcast. And he said, Carrie, don't overthink it. Just go to Chat GPT, tell it what kind of podcast you want to have. And he was like, and show up at my studio. And we went ahead and scheduled out 12 podcasts. So I was my first guest, and I told my story behind the story of Crisis
Yeah.
of Faith. And then I had friends. Actually, my second podcast, I had the lead singer for David and the Giants. It's one of the oldest Christian rock bands, and he has recently released his book. So I asked my husband to interview him because my husband gave his life to Christ at one of their concerts when he was 10
Oh,
years old.
wow.
I know. So that was awesome. But I have since released over 55 podcasts in the last 2 years, almost 2 years, year and a half. And so it's one of my newest hobbies. I absolutely love it.
That's so fun. Now, when you say podcast, you mean episodes?
Yes, episodes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just
So
making sure. I was like, well, that's a lot of podcasts.
yeah, no. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. Episodes, podcast episodes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's on YouTube and all the favorite podcast channels. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, what have I not asked you about your story that is important for listeners to know?
Well, I would say at the heart of everything I do is I want people to trust Jesus, because when they've experienced a hard relationship or they've been disappointed or hurt, then it's hard to know who to trust. And in Matthew 18, when the disciples asked Jesus, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? He pulls over a child and he says, if you will trust me like this child, you will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And children are very important to God. And I think in our world today, the news is going to tell us there's a lot of pedophilia out there. There's a lot of child trafficking. There's a lot of child sex abuse. And this is April. It's the month of child abuse awareness. And so I would just say, trust Jesus like a child if you don't. And if you don't know how to do that, call Andrea or I. We will be happy to help you, or, contact a Bible believing in church or somebody in your family who is a Christian, and get to know Jesus. He truly is the best father and friend and counselor and creator. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And that is what I would say is at the heart of everything I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And trust, that can be a hard one, especially if you have experienced something that's caused you to lose trust in not just in people, but a lot of times I think it's, I don't know if natural is the right word, but it's natural to blame God for what has happened. And so that trust can be a hard thing to either get back or to have at all going forward. So for someone struggling with trust, specifically trust, what was a moment in your life where you felt that you turned the corner on trust? I know you talked about when you first met your husband. Were there other moments in your life where you felt like God healed that piece of you and taught you how to trust again?
Oh, I would say yes. I would say during that time when I was homeschooling my kids and I was starting to write, we had some issues in our marriage where I was like, I just, I wanted to quit.
Mm.
Their marriage is tough. And I thought if I walk away, then I'm not living out what I've already grown so from. And so I truly had to open my arms. We were talking about surrender and say, Lord, I don't know what you're doing here, but I want you to heal it. And the Lord really performed a miracle in my own marriage. And we even started my husband had gone to premarital counseling with me because of what was going through in my early 20s. So he knew my story. But even then, I asked him to go back to counseling with me because I felt that battle of the darkness versus the light, the lies versus the truth. And I wanted to take control again. I wanted to protect myself from hurt. I don't like being hurt. I do not like being disappointed. I don't like lies. I don't like being cheated on. I do not like it. And so it's like I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, walking away, I'm a runner. I've run 4 marathons. I can run out that door and keep running away from my problems all day long. And so I was like, Lord, I don't want to run away. I want to run into your arms and I want you to help me. And I want to trust you. And you're going to, and it was almost like a challenge. Like, I dare you to help me through this because I'm tired. You get to a point when you're in midlife when you're like, I'm just tired. And I don't want to do this anymore. You're like, but I probably have 50 more years in me because God has a personality. He's going to make me stay here as long as I possibly can. But I just want to go home. There are many days I just want to go to heaven. I'm like, Lord, can you come back today? Because this world stinks.
Yep. Yes, there's probably been a few times. So talk to everybody about your book. I want to let everybody know, where can they find your book? Where can they find your podcast? Where can they connect with you? I want to make sure that and we'll put this as well. We'll put links out with the podcast. So all that will be out there, but tell people how they can find you and all the fun stuff where they can connect with you.
Sure. Well, I love social media. I'm on Instagram at Carrie Watts Writes. I'm on Facebook. My personal page where I post like vacations and family is Carrie Watts, but my author life is Carry On. So that's a story all within itself. I like to carry on and on and on, as you have heard today. And so Carry On kind of became a play on words. And then my website is carriewatts.com. Easy, just my name.
Oh, I love it so much. So, and then I'm going to just throw this out there because if anybody listening to this has thought, oh, boy, now I feel inspired to maybe write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I feel inspired to go do that. Where should they start? Can they reach out to you for that if they feel like, gosh, where do I even begin?
Yes, you can email me at carriewatts.com is my email address. Or if you want the free resource, go to my Instagram page at Carrie Watts Writes. It's in the links. It's the top one. And it's the Start Writing Workbook. And START is an acrostic. And it just helps you start writing your story. And then you can go from there.
There you go. There's the first step. Just got to take action and go do it.
Yeah.
Carrie, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been so fun getting to talk with you and hear more about your story because I didn't get to hear all of it beforehand. And I'm so inspired by getting to hear where you've come from and where you're at now. And it's the journey. And I really encourage people that if they've thought about writing a book to reach out to Carrie and just explore that. You never know what may happen. So thank you, Carrie, so much for coming on.
Thank you, Andrea, for having me. You've been a lovely host.
No, thank you.